My name is Kayla Spelling. I'm a Kentucky girl with wild hair and green eyes who's not just a photographer and videographer, but a midnight designer too. I'm a visual storyteller with a creative spirit that knows no bounds. As a creative junkie and Aquarian sun, my love for all things creative runs deep. Being a visual storyteller for over a decade has allowed me to work with some seriously impressive clients across all spectrums, fueling my desire to learn and explore how people experience the world. What do they have in common? They all live and breathe their passions. So, inspired by their experiences, I launched a podcast to hear theirs and other stories on how they broke the 9-to-5 mold and pursued their true purpose in life. My goal is to empower listeners with knowledge and inspire them to live their most authentic and fulfilling life by following their passions. Join me on a journey where we'll explore spiritualism, consciousness, writing, culinary arts, tattooing, music, travel, media, and so much more. As an Aquarius, I know that I'm full of surprises, but one thing's for sure. We're in for a crazy journey into this world of creative junk. Welcome back, my creative junkies. Get ready for some serious inspiration as we embark on an enchanting journey with extraordinary individuals who are living their passions. Today's episode is an absolute blast because I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with the amazing JoAnna Illingworth, a dear friend and brilliant author. We delve deep into JoAnna's creative mind, unveiling her secrets as an author and her obsession with the romantic side of time travel. We uncovered her path to self-publishing success and chatted about her incredibly fun and swoon-worthy book, The Black Umbrella, available now on Amazon. I first met JoAnna in 2015 when I started working as a web designer at Provident Label Group, a record label under Sony Music. We instantly bonded over our love of the popular TV show Doctor Who, yes, Whovians, Major Dorks, and our shared obsession with the amazing David Tennant. We had so much fun working together on various projects with the label, and I still vividly remember the day JoAnna told me about her book writing dreams in her office. To see her turn that dream into reality is beyond inspiring, but listen, enough about that. We'll talk more about that later. Let's dig into JoAnna's world. JoAnna Illingworth fell in love with the romantic side of time travel after watching Somewhere in Time, where Richard Collier risks it all to meet Elise McKenna. Luckily, JoAnna's debut novel has a much happier ending. She now resides in Nashville with her hilarious husband and 2 even funnier boys. All right, enough with the bios. Let's jump right into my creative chat with the incredible JoAnna Illingworth. JoAnna, welcome to Creative Junk.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, I was so excited to have you here. When I was going through my list of people that I wanted to interview, you were always one of the first people. So I'm so excited that you are technically probably in the first couple episodes, you're going to be featured. So I just can't wait.
Great. I'll break the mold. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it's so you know?
Yeah. We're just going to do it our way.
Exactly. So just to kind of give a little bit of background about us to people listening, you and I used to work together. We worked at Provident. Okay, they change their name all the time. So it's like Provident Label Group, Provident Music Group. Yeah. I don't know what it was at the time. I think it was Label Group.
It's a division of Sony Music. Most people can recognize that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So you were in marketing and I was a little web designer. But I just remember my boss, Tim, who's the art director, introduced us and right off the bat, we totally got along. Just especially with Doctor Who, being one of our main fandoms. But just in general, we just had a lot in common and, loved your office couch. I still remember that couch. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was a good couch.
Yeah, a lot of good times on that couch. A lot of good stories told on that couch.
I know. I think I spent more time chatting with people in my office than doing actual work, but we had a great
time. And still, somehow we got the work done. So
we did. We got a lot. Yeah, we did great work, and we also had a great time. The best.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So yeah, I've always just had a special place in my heart for you, JoAnna. I just always love
Yeah.
following you, and yeah, so I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to see you again and talk to you and hear what you're up to. And yeah, it was an easy yes when you asked me to come on.
I love it. Well, this is really focusing on you because you are an author first and
Yes.
foremost, in my opinion. And so all of that past history aside, I really just want to focus on you and your craft as being an author.
Yeah.
So
Great.
and my first question for you is just to kind of give me a little bit of your background, and especially like in regards to writing, like how you kind of got started on that path.
Yeah, I've always been a storyteller. I mean, I've always been an animated. I mean, talking about sitting on the couch in my office. I've always loved talking with people and telling stories and being very talkative. And I've always dabbled in, sort of like when blogs came around. I liked writing blogs and reading blogs. I've always been a big reader. And the honest truth is, it's not a glamorous story. But the truth is, I was not aware of fan fiction. This was, I don't know, 12 years ago, some number of years ago. I didn't even know what fan fiction was. I wrote some alternate chapters to one of the Twilight books
I
because
love
I
it.
didn't like what happened in the book. And so I wrote my own. Again, I was writing fan fiction, but I didn't know it. And
Yeah.
I've said to a few friends as kind of as a joke, like, I can't believe the book did this. Here's a better way, you know. And my friends loved it and were like, oh my gosh, you should write more stories. And I said, what if? And that sort of, it took a little while for me to really get into it, because at first it was kind of, I don't know if I know how to do this. And eventually it kind of snowballed into, oh wait, I think I'm actually writing a book. And then it turned into an actual book. So it was accidental Twilight fan fiction.
What's really interesting is I actually have heard that about a couple of young adult authors that I like
Yeah.
reading. Is a lot of them actually started in like fan fiction, which I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it makes sense, right? Because you're exploring your craft, and then it's also a really great way to get feedback too from people, just to see like if they're really engaged in the story that you're actually
Yeah.
telling.
Yeah. And it's very immediate too.
Yeah.
You know, writing fan fiction, I'm a big supporter of fan fiction. I think it's so fun. I think it's a great way
Hmm.
to explore your own creativity. It's a great way to encourage other people's creativity. It's a fun way to dive into fandom. Like, I love it. But it is really good for discovering your own voice as a writer,
Yeah.
and because you can try things and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? You can
Hmm.
sort of say, what if I go down this path and see if people respond to it, and if they don't, it doesn't hurt anything, So it's a really great way to figure out what kind of writer you are.
Yeah. So tell me just a little bit more about like your style of writing. Is there like a specific genre that you find yourself writing more in, or have you noticed like the more that you're writing, it's kind of going in different avenues, and like what's your process with writing?
Yeah, my first book that I published is a young adult novel, and I love reading young adult. I think I gravitated to writing young adult because it tends to be very personal, which I
Hmm.
respond to as a reader. And I write in first person, which is also, very personal. And I love that period of life where you're really discovering so many things about yourself and about the world. And I think
Yeah.
it's always interesting to read about characters, discovering who they are and their place in the world. And I love adult fiction as well. And I may write an adult novel eventually, but I love the spirit and the tone of young adult, and
Hmm.
I naturally sort of write in that tone.
Hmm.
Um so and I mean, I'm a very voice driven writer. Things like setting and world building, I really have to work at. but dialogue and character, it comes more
Mm-hmm.
naturally to me. And I'm very much like that, developing a character's voice and who they are and what kind of jokes they tell and, how and why they fall in love and with who. And, I love all that. And I think it's really fun to write about that period of life.
Yeah, my partner and I, we were just having a conversation about TV shows and how a lot of times it's like either the series is like so great with characters and like the dialogue and that development, but then they're lacking elsewhere, or it's the flip. It's like the world building is so incredible and you like totally feel immersed in it, but then it just is crap dialogue,
Yeah.
that can really bomb it. And then you have those like very special gems every now and then, that we find. And it's like, oh, where it
Yeah,
like
I know.
all melds in. I guess it's the same even for like you guys as like authors. It's like you definitely have like your strengths and stuff and kind of figuring out how to, okay, if it is world building, that's a little bit harder, it's like, how do I enhance that? Like, how do I work on that? How do
Right.
I expand my mind, to think in
Yeah.
that way?
Yeah. Like a lot of writers will start with the plot, which is certainly probably the right way to do it. And some start with a setting, and I really start with the character. I mean, it's always the first thing that comes to mind for me is the character or characters. And then the more I develop who they are, where they are comes to fruition, but it's really more about them and who they are before the where and what for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have some friends who are writers who they start with the setting. It's like, oh, I'm going to write a story in some haunted woods, and then they add characters in. Whereas for me, I start with who is this person, and based on who they are, then where are they and what are they doing, And I mean, either way is right. It just is how your process is as a writer.
Yeah, absolutely. I am curious about this, like, kind of, so, because the thing is, like, I knew you from work. And so I knew, like, a little bit about kind of your path and starting to write, like, your first book. Because I remember coming into your office and you had been working on your book, periodically. And we would talk about it and you wouldn't give me too much, which I loved. You're just like, well, it has to do with time travel. And there's, like, this umbrella. I'm like, okay. I was always so excited to know like what the story was. Um, but yeah, like how you definitely like had to break that 9 to 5 mold. And I feel like it was really kind of a blessing for kind of that with what happened to get you to like really focus on your writing and get this book done. What are you open to talking about? Or can you kind of talk about like that break from the 9 to 5 and transitioning into writing your first novel?
Yeah, I mean, I worked at various record companies for over 25 years, and I didn't see a path outside of that. Like I thought writing would always, excuse me, I thought writing would always be extra, and just because it's not a for very few is it a full-time moneymaker. For some it is, but for most people it's not, and we do other things. And I just didn't see a scenario where I couldn't work, the 9 to 5, like you said. And then it was about 6 years ago, I guess, I was laid off. And I mean, unexpectedly, but also a little expectedly. But that gave me the opportunity to say, okay, I've sort of been forced out, what do I want to do now? And I could have jumped back into another 9 to 5, which would be safe. But I just, since I had that moment, I decided to try, and then if it didn't work, I could always go back to a traditional job. And so I started doing freelance writing jobs, music writing, not fiction, but I was still exercising that muscle. And then every opportunity I had, I was working on my own writing. And I've been doing that ever since. It's been a great balance because I'm able to spend the time that I want to on my own writing. And then in my, quote, day job, which is a little, because I am a freelance writer. I mean, I work for a company part-time, and I take a lot of different freelance jobs, probably a little bit like too, like we do a little, we do a lot of different things and wear a lot of different hats, but I'm more in charge now of my schedule and how it's ordered. And so it really did give me the opportunity to feel the freedom to focus on my writing, that I wasn't cheating something else, which was nice.
Yeah.
And so, that gave me the opportunity to really finish my book and write more, and it's great. I wouldn't go back unless I was forced to, but so far so good.
No, that is good. I love it. Well, let's talk about your first novel. Kind of, where did that inspiration come from, and just that whole process of like writing it, putting it together, and then even with publishing. I'm really interesting to hear your side of that as well, with the whole publishing side.
Yeah, well, the idea for the book, honestly, I was dabbling in writing a little bit. I told you I had written this fan fiction, and my friends were like, oh, you should write more, and I just didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know anything about the publishing industry or any of that. It was more, I like to read, and what do I do with that? And a friend of mine who was also kind of dabbling in writing, we were sitting at a restaurant and talking about writing. And I said, what if I wrote a novel? And I was trying to make her laugh because she was kind of down on herself about writing. And I was just trying to make her laugh. And I said, I'm going to write a novel about a time traveling umbrella. I just made it up to make her laugh, and I was like, and I just started spitballing about what if. And about 5 minutes in, we both went, what if? What if I did write a book about a time traveling umbrella? And at the time, I didn't have one clue how to write a novel, because being a writer and writing a novel are two different muscles.
Yeah.
You can write a great blog or a great essay or a great, like I do a lot of writing in the entertainment industry, and you can be very talented at all of those things. And it doesn't mean you can just quickly write a novel. It's a whole different ballgame. And I had no clue about it. So I fumbled along, and honestly, at the time, this was, I don't know, 9-10 years ago, the writing community on Twitter was very, very great. And I learned how to write a novel from writing friends on Twitter, which is kind of sad now that that's sort of, it's not the same as it was. But back then, there was just this really, really great community of people in all stages, people that were traditionally published, self-published, working to write a novel, trying to learn how to write a novel, agented, people that had a literary agent, people that didn't, it was just all different. And I met so many people that I'm still friends with. And we all just sort of, at the time, were learning how to do it together. And so with my first book, which is called The Black Umbrella, I wrote, I don't know, a dozen different drafts, learning how to write a book. I knew the story I wanted to tell, but it was learning how to tell it. And so it took a long time. And because for a lot at the beginning part of it, I was still working, at the record label full time.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a long time. But I did eventually get there. I did sign with a literary agent, who really believed in my book, and it was really exciting. And it definitely felt like, this is it. Everything is happening. And a lot of publishers really liked my book, but no one said yes. So it was disappointing. I wrote another book. My agent submitted it out to a lot of publishers. We got a lot of great feedback, very positive feedback. Nobody said yes. And I'm telling that quickly, but I mean, this was years of waiting and trying. And it was really hard. It was really hard. And so many people go through that. So many people.
Yeah.
Because, there's only so many slots for a yes. And I just wasn't getting one. And so, I was really discouraged. I kept writing, but I was really discouraged. And I have friends in my life who really believed in me and believed in my book and encouraged me to self-publish. And I wasn't opposed to it, but I think because of my background in marketing, I knew how hard it would be. I knew it wasn't as simple as push a button and yay, it's out in the world. So I was intimidated by the process. But again, I had 3 friends in particular who just really wouldn't let it go. They were like, don't give up a traditional publishing dream if that's what you want. But with this book, with the Black Umbrella, we really think you should put it out. So I did. I, went through the process of making sure that it was edited and copy edited and, all that kind of stuff. I hired Tim Parker to design the cover, who was our mutual friend. Right? Yes. Here it is.
So beautiful. Tim Parker. Yes.
What else? Tim Parker, who, for those listening, he is an incredible award-winning designer that Kayla and I worked with back in the day, and a good friend and a wonderful human being. And I just reached out and was like, would you be willing to, and I mean, I hired him, I paid him, but like, I just said, would you be willing to design my book? And he did such a fantastic job.
Oh, yeah.
And so I honestly, the hardest part was believing in myself enough to do it. Because, if you're traditionally published, you have a publisher behind you saying, this is good. And when you do it yourself, you don't have anybody saying this is good but you. And so it's a little terrifying to say to the world, hey, I think this is good. But I decided to do it, and I'm so glad that I did. It's done far better than I thought it would, and I'm about to put out a sequel, and it's just gone amazing. And I'm grateful that I've bet on myself, basically. It was hard, but I'm glad I did it.
Hey there. I know this conversation is super interesting, but let's take a quick break. Here's a special message from our awesome sponsor. Experience pure magic and rejuvenation with Wicked Obscura, a women-owned apothecary and candle shop in Covington, Kentucky. As one of the owners of this company, I can assure you that we believe in the power of nature and spiritual well-being, which we infuse in every handmade item that we offer. Our candle selection, made of coconut soy and infused with herbs and crystals, give off an unforgettable scent while promoting a peaceful atmosphere. With wood wicks and 100% safe ingredients, our candles provide a touch of magic in every home. Don't miss out on this special offer. Use code CreativelyWicked at checkout to snag 15% off your next purchase and experience the true essence and light of Wicked Obscura. Start shopping now at wickedobscura.com. Use code CreativelyWicked at checkout to snag that 15% off. Yeah. Okay, wait. First of all, so there's going to be a sequel to this book.
Yes.
Okay. That is good news for me. Yes. I love it.
Little stages of putting it together now. And I don't have a release date because I need a couple of things to fall into place. But I mean, I'm hoping later this year it'll be out. So I'm very, very excited.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to blast that when that goes live. Yeah. And so it's really cool. So with me moving to Belgium, my best friend Kaylee and I, we really like to read. And we were just trying to figure out a way for us to be able to do something weekly with each other. It's like even to like make us meet, because life is so busy with everybody. And so it's like sometimes it's just you're so busy and then you don't message or, and that can happen for weeks or whatever. So we're like, let's find something to help us at least have us communicate weekly. So we decided
Yeah.
to do book club. And so we chose your book as as the first book for book
I love
club.
it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. So we absolutely loved it. No, not going to spoil anything for anybody who hasn't read it, but I really loved, my favorite scenes were always the one at the, in the kitchen at the table where they would just like
Yep.
be themselves. Those were
Me
always
too.
my favorite moments. Yeah.
Yes, I've been very blessed. I've gotten a lot of feedback from readers, and like I said, it's done so much better than I had even hoped. But I had the opportunity to do a book event this past February at a bookstore. They invited me to come, and they served a dinner based on the book, which was
Oh,
incredible. It was incredible. And everybody had read the book, and then I went and talked about it. But everybody that was at the event, they said the same thing. They were like, the scenes in the kitchen are our favorite, which I agree. I
yeah.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So good.
absolutely. So going back to, the self-publishing thing, I like such kudos to you. I have a couple of friends of mine who are in the process of finishing their book, like whatever draft it is, right? They've of course already written it, but it's draft 20 by this point,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's been that debate of, do we go with a publisher? Do we self-publish, and like the pros and cons with that? So that's why I was really curious to kind of get your insight on that, since you're someone I at least know or knew that had
Yeah.
done self-publishing. So,
I mean, traditional publishing is extremely worthy path, and I'm not anti traditional publishing in any way. I mean, one of the hard parts about traditional publishing is the timeline,
mhm.
because it can take months, years to get an agent, literary agent, and then it can take months, years to sell a book. And from what I know from friends who've been traditionally published, once you sell a book to a publisher, it's 2 to 3 years before it comes out.
Yeah,
So, and that's not, I mean, so many people do that, and it's a very valid path, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But one thing I like about self-publishing is I'm a little more in control of the timeline, um, and the how, because so many authors talk about, even though they're signed to one of the big five, a lot of the marketing is still up to them. And so, as a self-published author, all of the marketing is up to me.
yeah,
But from what I have learned, it would be anyway, And so
yeah,
I like I like having control of, the cover and the timing and the messaging and the how and the when. And maybe I'm not selling as many as a traditionally published author, but I know a lot of books that I am selling as many as. That was not worded well, but you know what I mean? Like,
hmm,
there's not a one is better than the other. It's just what works best for you, because both paths have pluses and minuses. Honestly, they're both good and both bad. So it's just what works best for you. I mean, some authors don't want to be so involved. They want somebody else to make the cover, somebody else,
sure,
they don't want to do all that. And that's perfectly great.
yeah,
Um so either path is good, but I think the stigma of self-publishing has kind of lessened over
hmm,
time, because there are a lot of people publishing really great books on their own. And so I think that
yeah,
stigma of, oh, all self-published books are bad. I don't hear that as much as I used to years ago, because, we have the tools now to really create quality product
hmm.
on our own, which is nice. That's really nice. I like it.
Yeah. I mean, especially with social media now,
Yep.
like marketing is literally in your hands,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
before, years ago, you didn't have that easy access to be able to promote, but now you can. So,
Right. Right. I mean, so much of marketing is one to one, and the author has to do that no matter what. And so it does make it a lot easier to take the reins, if that's something you want to do. And I've really enjoyed it. I'm all in. I love it.
So, I'm sure there is, it's kind of a dumb question, but are there any specific authors that have inspired you with this path?
Um, well, that's a funny question because I do have several friends who've self-published, but the biggest successes, if you want to say that, are in self-publishing, are in adult romance and science fiction.
It's really, well, I guess, you know what? I can see that with science fiction, actually.
Yeah, and one of my hesitations about self-publishing is because I write young adult. And historically, young adult has not done well in the self-published world.
Interesting.
So I don't have, it's not that they don't exist, but I don't have any friends who are self-publishing young adult. But I do have several friends who write adult romance, and they're killing it. They're doing amazing things and doing great. And we do learn from each other because, a book's a book. And so we do learn from each other different things to do and things to try. But I have just relied on my own, marketing experience and my network of friends. Excuse me. And it's, my book's expanded beyond that, but that's just where I started because there's not as many mechanisms for young adult fiction in the self-publishing world that I have found.
Yeah.
There's things like email trades and email lists, and I'm not going to think of everything right off the bat, but there's a lot of sort of mechanisms for like adult romance that you can kind of plug into, which is great. I haven't found anything like that for young adults, so I'm just sort of out here swimming on my own, but maybe there will be more as we go down the line.
Maybe you're spearheading it, it's like, come on, people, let's do this.
Yeah. So it is a little more challenging on the young adult side, but I have been happy with how my book's doing. So it's just finding, it's just looking for your reader and communicating to the readers that you have exactly what your book is. And, word of mouth. It's word of mouth. That's how every single book sells. It's word of mouth. So if you can get that.
Well, and honestly, your TikTok videos are so good. So I think that alone should help sell this book. So people listening, if you go check out JoAnna, just enjoy her TikToks. Yes.
Listen, I'm an old lady, but I try because I love TikTok. I think it's so fun. And I think it's fun to make TikToks. And I just, here's my biggest advice to any writer is do what you enjoy.
Yes.
If you don't enjoy making TikToks, don't do it. If you don't enjoy marketing your own book, then try to go the traditional route. Because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it will show. And
Absolutely.
So, I like making dumb, goofy TikToks. And so that's what I do because I think it's fun and funny. But, because I hear a lot of authors talking about, I have to get on TikTok and I don't understand it and I don't get it. And I'm like, well, then don't do it. Like, it's not, only do the things that you love and the rest will follow.
So what's currently inspiring you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm very inspired by books and film and TV story, honestly. And it doesn't even have to be, quote, in the genre that I do. You know what I mean? Sure. I love, like, Schitt's Creek storytelling is beyond incredible. Like, we could just study it and break it down. It's beyond incredible. I love everything that Casey McQuiston writes. She wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is real hot right now because the movie just came out. But I mean, just an incredible storyteller that I resonate with. I love Rainbow Rowell, anything that she writes. I love her writing style. Both of them, Casey McQuiston and Rainbow Rowell, both are very character and dialogue driven, which is also how I write. So I really connect with their writing style and love everything they do. But
Mhm.
really, I just absorb story constantly. I read so much, I watch so much. Like I just watched season 2 of Good Omens. Incredible
Mhm.
storytelling,
Mhm.
incredible characters. Love it. So I just find inspiration in the way other people tell a story. And
Yeah.
I'm still going to tell it the way I'm going to tell it. I've learned that over
Sure.
the years that I can only write how I write. I can't do it any other way. Like I tried to write a novel. I tried to stretch myself and write it in a different way, and didn't work.
Yeah,
Like
didn't feel right.
I write swoony, funny, character-driven books. That's what I do. And
Mhm.
so I'm just going to lean into that because that's, how stories come out for me. But I love and am inspired by how other creators tell a story, and I love to learn
Mhm.
from that and, and you know, take a little bit from everybody.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, and I think you really nailed it because I'm really just about authenticity, which has actually been kind of a reoccurring theme that's come up on a couple of these episodes because you're so on it, right? It's like I can't be anybody else. Like I can't write like anyone else. I just have to
Yeah.
write like me, and really it's like once you have that realization, it's incredible what art you create, whether
Mhm.
it is writing or painting or music or, whatever it is. Just be you, just embrace, whatever inspiration that you have and just go
Yeah.
with it. And it's really is like, who cares if there are people who don't engage with it? You know what I mean? It's like, whatever,
Right.
there's got to be somebody out there. And if not, I'm doing it because I like it.
Honestly, you said, where do I get inspiration? When I love a book, like I do truly, and I read it when it came out, but the book Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston,
Mhm.
which right now, on TikTok and Instagram, it's everywhere right now. But I read it when the book came out, which I guess was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know. But when I read a book that I really, really connect with and love, as soon as I finish it, I go read the 1-star reviews because
Mhm.
because you know how when you love a piece of media so much and you think, how could everyone not love this so much
Yeah.
because it's so great and it moved me in some way, or and then when you read the 1-star reviews, you're like, oh, some people really hated this.
Yeah.
But it's always such a great lesson for me because just like you said, it's not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. Write the
Mhm.
thing that's truest to you, and it will connect with an audience. It doesn't have to connect with everybody. It only has to
Yeah.
connect with your audience and, whoever that may end up being. And that is an important lesson for me every book that I write, because I've written a few novels that I'm still working on. So I have one that's out, but I have a few others in the on the shelf. But I have learned if I write the truest thing for me, then the rest doesn't matter. If it doesn't connect with somebody, that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the art that I've created if it doesn't connect with someone else, because it's
Mhm.
still true to me.
Yeah, and I honestly, the show Schitt's Creek, as hilarious as it is, but like to me, you really can sense that with how he wrote that. Like he just genuinely wrote this story and they just like put this together and you could just tell that he didn't care. Like he just wanted to like do
Right.
this and like it was his thing and this is where the characters were going,
Yeah.
and I just love that. And you can feel that when you're watching it. And it
Oh
is
yeah.
so character driven to me. Like sure there's a plot, like a general plot, but it's those characters that
Yeah.
take you on that journey.
Well, and it's so much I mean, it is hilarious, but it's so much about this family discovering what family means. And
Yeah.
every episode has that core to it. so that, by the time you get to the end, you're just weeping at this family and how far they've come, and how they've discovered how much they love each other. And it's brilliant. I think it's just brilliant storytelling. I love it so much.
Oh yeah, same here. This is actually, I didn't even have this on my list of questions. This is a random question for you. Some authors that I've talked to, they have told me that like characters talk to them. So like they'll be like writing, and then it's like a character's like literally telling them to stop, or like, you got to change this, or, you got to like this, no, this is how it's going to go. And I didn't know, is that the same with you? Have you found that where your character's like literally like, excuse me, and like taking over?
Yes. And I would tell you that I think it's the most annoying thing ever to say, but also it's true. It's true. Like I feel like it sounds so pretentious to be like, oh, my characters talk to me, but they do. So my, the sequel for the Black Umbrella that's coming out, the best friend in the Black Umbrella, her name's Amelia. Mm-hmm. And the sequel is about her, and she's going to go on her own time travel adventure. And I love her so much, and I loved writing her so much because she is herself 1,000%, and, very sassy and very funny and very, effervescent. And I just think she's the best. And there were things I wanted her to do or say, and she wanted to say something different. And again, I know that sounds kooky, but it really is.
I've heard it from so many authors. So that's why I had to ask. I'm like, is this just a thing?
Yeah. They, when you know your characters so well, they really do kind of develop on their own as their own entity. And I mean, obviously it's not, or at least for me, it's not an audible voice in your head, but
sure,
it's let's say you try to write a character saying one thing, and you just feel in your bones they would not say this. They would say this other thing. And it's, it's the way of the character talking to you and moving you down a specific path. And I have found the character is never wrong. Whatever they're telling you to do, it's the right thing. Mm-hmm. So if it goes against your plan, throw the plan out the window and do what the character says, because they're always right.
I love it. Yeah. So reading your book, so is it, okay, because this was a while ago I read this. Is it Ben that your main character was dating? Is that his name?
Yes, Ben. And I mean, they were like starting to, they were doing the initial flirt, and then she accidentally time travels to 1826, alarmingly.
Yes. Yeah. So when we were reading, my friend Kaylee, we really enjoyed the book and everything. She's like, honestly, I'm going to start a campaign for justice for Ben, because like, Ben, come on, he is awesome. And like this total terrible situation happened. So she's probably going to be campaigning even through the sequel of Justice for Ben.
I get it. And I would, if I was the reader, I would too, because Ben is amazing. And I completely agree. And honestly, that was part of it for Brawley, the main character, is that Ben was so great.
Right.
But he wasn't her person.
Right.
And Ben checked every box. Such a great guy. He was into her. They got along. And anybody would be like, what, why aren't you into Ben? And he wasn't Thomas. And so there's, and that's another sort of the character talking to you. It's like, who would she genuinely choose? Not who would the reader choose? Who would she choose?
Absolutely.
And she had to tell me, and she did.
Yeah. Well, set in stone, or will it? We'll find out in the sequel. Oh God.
I know. Justice for Ben. I get it.
Justice for Ben. Exactly. So, this is something I really like to ask all the people that I'm interviewing. For listeners out there who are needing some advice and inspiration regarding like, whether it's picking up a hobby or tapping into a passion project, what advice can you give them or say to them?
I mean, it sounds trite, but honestly, it's believe in yourself. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to do what anyone else is doing. You don't have to be at the same level of success as anybody else. You don't have to follow the same path as anybody else. And no one else's path or success negates yours. There's
Right.
room for all of us. That's a big thing that I've learned, putting this book out myself, is that someone else's success doesn't diminish mine.
Mm-hmm.
There's room for all of us to be successful. And so it's really staying true to your own art, whatever medium that is, believing in your own voice and telling your story your own way. And there will be people that resonate with that. If it's authentic to you and you tell it your own way, because no one else can tell the story you can tell.
Yeah.
A lot of people have said this before, but if you had 10 different people, if you gave 10 different people a writing prompt, they would all write it a different way. It might be the same story, but it would be written a different way. And so nobody can tell the story that you're going to tell. Yeah. So believe in yourself to tell it.
I love that. Yeah, because it's like, I feel like people they don't end up they may like to draw, right? But they don't feel like they should like keep doing that hobby, because it's like, I can't really draw, and what am I going to do with drawing, right? Like, what am I going to do with that? Like, I'm not going to get a career in it. We don't have to have a career in it, like you could just pick up that pad and just draw, and it's a way to like get things flowing through you, kind of get it out, get that inspiration out there. And it's the same with writing too. It's like, if you have the story that's living in you, just write it. Like, you can put it out to the world if you want, or not. It could just be for you, that you just wrote for yourself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really healthy for your mind and your spirit to express your creativity. And like you said, it doesn't have to be for an audience. It can just be for you. But I think it's really, it's a really healthy exercise to allow your creativity to come out in whatever way that is. And if you end up sharing it with people, great. And if you don't, it's still good for you.
Well, JoAnna, we have come to the end of this beautiful interview.
I love chatting with you.
Oh my God, I loved it too. I've missed this. I'm just like envisioning us back. I'm on your couch in your new office, because this is probably like way cooler. So I'm in your new office, just chilling on the couch, and we're just like hanging out, and and I'm so proud of you. Seriously. I'm a huge fan. And yes, I can't wait. Tell me as soon as you know, for the sequel, because I'll definitely.
I'm hoping to announce it soon. I need a few pieces to fall into place, and then so I'm hoping to announce it soon. I'm really excited about it.
Okay, awesome. And so, where can listeners find you on the internet?
So like on Instagram, I'm Glamorous Jo, which is a throwback to like 100 years ago. And it honestly has nothing to do with me. It's just the handle that I've had since the dawn of the internet. And on TikTok, I'm Glam Jo. But I mean, you can look up my name, JoAnna Illingworth, anywhere. But mostly, I mean, I'm on Threads and Twitter and Facebook, but mostly I'm active on Instagram and TikTok. And I also have a website, JoAnnaIllingworth.com. So I'm in all those places. Come and find me.
Love it. JoAnna, thank you so much for doing this.
You are so wonderful. And all of your listeners are so lucky to get to listen to your podcast, because you're the best.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, enjoy the rest of your beautiful day. It is getting into evening here for me in Belgium. So
I love it. Thank you so much, Kayla.
Thank you, JoAnna. This podcast is brought to you by Mindjunk Creative, a creative agency that creates brands and experiences rooted in visual storytelling. By exploring your mind junk Creative is able to tap in and explore all of your wild ideas that you may have viewed as throwaways and use them to create engaging stories and experiences for your brands. What's your story? Go to mindjunkcreative.com and follow them on Instagram at itsmindjunk. Huge thanks, JoAnna, for being an extraordinary guest. You're definitely on the top of my mind when I first started this podcast, so I am absolutely stoked that you had the opportunity to join and share your incredible story. By the way, I'm counting down the days until your next book gets released. Be sure to click the links in the episode description and show notes on our website at creativejunkpodcast.com to connect with JoAnna on social media and explore her website. And don't forget, you can find JoAnna's latest book, The Black Umbrella, available now on Amazon. And keep coming back to our website for all the latest updates on our incredible guests on Creative Junk. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Find me on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or any of your go-to platforms. And leave me a review and share it with your friends. I'll seriously be forever grateful. Also, if you have any thoughts on today's episode or must-hear stories, hit me up at hello@creativejunkpodcast.com. You know that I love hearing from you also. Until next time, catch you later, folks. Did you love this episode? Well, let's continue the chatter on Instagram and Facebook. We can dish about the latest interview and catch up on all things, creative. Plus, check out creativejunkpodcast.com for show notes and other juicy resources to satisfy your creative cravings. Don't miss out on the fun, and hey, thank you for listening.